Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Judith Patterson. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Texas, and today I'll be showing you how to make a card from the catalog. It is still celebration time, which is a fun time in my Stampin' Up! World, because during celebration, when you make a purchase in the US of $50 or $100 or anything more than that, so you get to pick something from our celebration brochure for free. So for every $50 you can pick a $50 item, or for $100 you can pick two $50 items or one $100 item. And the product that I'm using today, that I am highlighting all week over on my blog, is the Wonderful World stamp set. So, the fun thing about this stamp set is that it's not just a stamp set, you also get 12 by 12 designer series paper with it, and I'll show you that a little bit better here in a second. So, let me flip the camera around and I'll go ahead and show you the card that we're going to be making today. So it's this one right here. I actually had a hard time deciding which card I wanted to go with because I love all of these, and none of them are really super difficult, but if you've been watching my videos, I've been really into blending lately with the blending brushes, and I decided I really love the way that this turns out here, so that's what I went with. And here on this page you can see that you get this designer series paper and this stamp set for free when you make a $100 purchase. And like I said, if you make a $150 purchase, then you can get one of the $50 items as well. I love the hippest hippos. That's one of my favorite things in this. And it is free with a $50 purchase. And then you can get the dies that coordinate with it if you do another $50 purchase or a $100 purchase. I'm rambling again, y'all. So sorry. Okay, let me go ahead and start by pulling out a little piece of grid paper. And this is just one of the pieces that goes on my Stamparatus. And I'm using the masking paper again. It comes in 5 by 7 sheets. I'll turn that around the right way. And then you can just cut it to whatever size that you want to use, which is super handy. So I can get a lot of use out of just one sheet. So I'm going to start by masking a half an inch on either side and the bottom. And I'm going to use this paper to help me make sure I get everything lined up straight. So each one of these tiny little squares is 1/4 inch. So I'm going to start over on this side. Keeping it straight. I keep picking it up. There we go. Okay, and now that that side is down, it'll be easier to do the rest of the sides because it won't be moving around so much. So each of these pieces is 3/4 inch of masking paper. It's 3/4 inch by 5 inches. Okay, so now I'm going to take my Daffodil Delight and a blending brush, if you've been watching all my videos on using blending brushes, I like to use one brush for all my yellows, one brush for all my grays, one brush for all my blues, and so on, and that way I don't have to clean them in between use. I can just keep using them over and over again. So I'm gonna start at the bottom every time because I want all the darkest colors at the bottom, and then it'll get lighter as it goes up. Okay, so it's pretty dark at the bottom and it goes up to where there's just a little bit of the yellow at the top. Now I'm going to just very carefully peel back this masking paper. I love that nice crisp edge that you get whenever you're using this with the blending brushes. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to just take this whole thing and put it on my Stamparatus. And the Stamparatus, of course, is not necessary. It is just my favorite way to stamp. Oops. Need to get my magnets off and then put my paper on. This is a cling stamp set, so it's the red rubber. So you don't need to use the foam mat with your Stamparatus. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So anytime I use photopolymer stamps, I always put this on first, and then I put my grid paper over it, and that just gives it a good cushioned, supportive surface to stamp on, and it lifts your cardstock up just a little bit for those photopolymer stamps. Okay, so I might use every one of these, but I'm going to start with this big one here. So I'm just going to place it where I want it. I want it to come down a little bit past this yellow and a little bit over. Oh, and I have realized I didn't tell you what size this basic white cardstock is. So this basic white is 4 3/4 of an inch by 3 3/4 of an inch. So that ought to be fairly easy to remember. And I'm just going to pick that up with this plate here, and then I'm going to use Mossy Meadow to stamp all of these flowers. I'm going to go ahead and take this plate off. Normally I would put another plate on up here, but because my space is limited, I'm just going to go ahead and take this one off and grab the other one. Okay, so now I'm going to grab the other two flowers, put one here. No, I don't want it overlapping that much. I mean, over the edge. So I'm going to put it right about there. And then this other one, I'm going to put it, I think right there. Then again with the Mossy Meadow, remember when you're inking your flower or your stamps, you don't want to press too hard with your ink pad. Just give it a light tap a few times, because you don't want to get ink all over the edges, which I actually did a little bit, but because I was pressing firmly in the center of the flowers and not on the edge of the flowers as I stamped, it's okay. I didn't end up with a halo around all my images. That's always frustrating. Okay, so now I'm just going to add a few leaves. Actually, I think I'm just going to go with one here. I didn't stamp it exactly the same places that they did in the catalog, so it's not fitting exactly the way it did in the catalog, but that's okay. Part of the fun of stamping and creating cards is that everyone is unique and a piece of art because of the differences in them. Okay, so I'm going to take this and put it in my painted texture 3D embossing folder. This one is so cool. And then I'm going to put it over, this is a standard embossing folder, so it won't fit in my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, so I'm going to run over and put it in my standard Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. I'm going to do that off camera, but I wanted to show you this is the way I put it in its little sandwich. So I have the plate 1, and then I have my cardstock in my embossing folder, and then I'm going to layer plate 4 on over it. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my embossing folder. I'll run it through. Let me see if you can see. Oh yeah, you can see this texture. There you go. Isn't that cool? I love that. Alright, so I'm going to set all of this aside. And then there's not a sentiment that comes in this stamp set. So I'll be using the Very Best Occasions stamp set. And you can use really any of these. I'm going to use Endlessly Grateful. And I've already got it out. I don't know what I was doing. So I have a scrap piece of fresh freesia cardstock, and this is just a scrap. I don't know what the dimensions are, but you want to get one, if you're using this sentiment, that is at least 1 inch by 2 inches, or around there, pretty close. And the reason for that is I'm going to be using a die from Beautiful Shapes Dies to cut this out, and I stamped it in Rich Razzleberry. So here's the Beautiful Shapes dies, and I'm just going to be using this little one right here. So I can use my mini Stamp Cut and Emboss machine for this one. Okay, so looking at this die, let's see if it'll focus so you can see it. So you can see there's kind of a straight line right here that goes diagonal across the bottom, and then there's a little gap right here. I hope you can see that. So the little gap in the center I want on the top, and then that line I'm putting on the bottom. And then remember, when you're using your mini Stamp Cut and Emboss machine, to not line up the ends of your plates exactly. You want them kind of off center so that you can get it started easier in your machine. Okay, so that will cut out your sentiment, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull that off and put it to the side, and then I can put up my Stamp Cut and Emboss machine. Mini Stamp Cut and Emboss. Okay, so now all of our pieces are ready to put together. This is just trash. I'm going to use my liquid glue to put down this piece of Designer Series paper. It's 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches, and I'm just putting it on a thick basic white cardstock base. It is 11 inches by 4 1/4 inches, and then I scored it at 5 1/2 inches. Okay, so for this, I'm going to use Stampin' Dimensionals. There we go. And then I'm going to use 2 more dimensionals to put the sentiment on. Now, the card in the catalog shows they're adhesive backed little flower embellishments. I don't remember the exact name of them, but I don't have them. So surprise, I'm using brushed brass butterflies again. If you've been watching my channel since the mini catalog came out, you know, actually, not even this mini catalog, the one before, you know that this is my all-time favorite embellishment, and I am going to be so sad if Stampin' Up! Ever retires these, and I'm sure they will at some point, but I will be absolutely buying extra because I love these. Butterflies are my favorite, and these are just the perfect embellishment to add to practically any project, especially if you love butterflies as much as I do. But one of the things I love about them is, well, okay, 2 things. 1, they go with anything, but 2, they're pretty flat. So I don't mind putting these even inside my cards, because they just don't add that much thickness to your projects. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to do is I have a scrap of this Designer Series paper left. So I'm just going to add that to the bottom here. And I'm going to use my liquid glue again. If you prefer Stampin' Seal, then by all means use that. Whatever your favorite adhesive is. I like them all for different things, but multi-purpose glue and Stampin' Dimensionals are what I use the most. Alright, and so there's the card that we just made. And then again, the original is on page 15 of the Sale-a-bration brochure. And so you can compare it just a little bit there. So it's pretty similar. Not exactly the same, but pretty close. Alright. Thank you so much for watching my video today. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already and would like to see more of these videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you'll be notified. If you have any questions about Sale-a-bration or Stampin' Up, you can always send me a message and I will be glad to help you out. And if you're in the US and you need to stock up on supplies, then you can do that in my online store, which is linked below. Thank you again for watching. Happy stamping!